Elden Ring is definitely one of the best games I've played in recent memory because of what it offers. I have almost 300 hours in the game, which is a lot for me, and after all this time and the amount of playthroughs I've done, I can't help but wonder about some weird mysteries that I've found while playing the game. Now, I'm not someone who's particularly great at lore, but I at least know the basics and I'm curious. Before we start, go ahead and get yourself a Nutri-Grain bar, get some lemonade, and some Chex Mix, and without further ado, let's get started. To start this video off, I want to cover a pretty strange but fun unsolved mystery in the DLC. While exploring in Shadow of the Erdtree, you find the area that will eventually lead up to Bale the Dread. And one of the most notable things about this area is the giant dead dragon next to the Dragon Communion altar. Now, on a first playthrough, if you're anything like I was, you may not think much about this, but from a lore perspective, we have no idea who this dragon was. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen a huge dead dragon, as Grandsax and Leyndell exists. However, the combined mysteries of these two dragons is how they got so huge. And we know it's not by age because Bale is the oldest and not the biggest at all. So these dragons may be the same species. The actual creepiest thing about this dead dragon in the DLC though is that it's dead. And not by age, but by looks like to be a giant harpoon stuck inside of it, which is likely what killed it. You could maybe say that Bale killed the dragon, but he would have had to have help with the giant harpoon. And this is what brings me to Igon. We know that he uses a lot of harpoons, so maybe some of his kind, the Drake Warriors, were able to build something that launched into the dragon to end its life. And we all know that this is not the first time that we've seen something like this. Although there's not much physical evidence of this, logically it would make sense considering it seems like this dragon's heart was carried away to the dragon altar, which is something Bale wouldn't do. But at the end of the day, whatever killed this thing is not something I want to be near at all. Rykard, in my opinion, is one of the more interesting characters in Elden Ring's lore. He has a kinda sad and tragic story that I'll have to talk about before I talk about the mystery itself, because the mystery relates to his story. Way back when, Rykard's job was to torture heretics against the Golden Order or the Erdtree. Then after the Elden Ring chatted everywhere and the demigods started fighting each other, Rykard got kind of frustrated. So he abandoned the Golden Order in return and ended up turning the heresy. Because of where he was, he found a lost religion where you worship a giant serpent. Rykard embraced this religion and he became a lot more powerful. He ended up basically declaring war and sending his armies against the Golden Order, and he formed a group of rebel Tarnish called Recusants. But some point in this war, Rykard merged with the giant serpent. So the guy used to look like this, and now he looks like this. He was close to being somewhat morally good for Elden Ring, but he failed. Anyway, this is more of two mysteries than just one mystery. First of all, we don't really know the origins of this giant serpent. Like, we don't know where the serpent came from, if someone created the serpent, why the serpent was, how the religion was formed, etc. And I genuinely can't really find anything on this. And then the second mystery is, why did Rykard merge himself with the giant serpent? Now, the most reasonable answer to this question would be that he gets more power, which could be a possibility, but there's also other possibilities as well. Maybe the giant serpent forged with Rykard because the giant serpent wanted more power. Anyway, it's a sad story and a somewhat confusing one, and I wish we could get some answers on the origin of this ancient religion. This next mystery I'm about to talk about is probably the most mysterious I have on this list, as there's no real theories or explanations I could find for it, so all I'm really gonna do is just explain what the mystery is, and maybe you guys can figure it out in the comments. If you know anything about the Gloam-Eyed Queen and Elden Ring lore, then you probably expected her to be on this list. Full disclosure, we basically know nothing about the Gloam-Eyed Queen. We know that she's an Empyrean and had the power to become a god, but instead tried to hunt down other gods, leading Queen Marika to send Malekith to go defeat her and stop her. And Malekith was successful, as he did defeat her in battle. Now here's a mystery. We don't know where the Gloam-Eyed Queen is now. First of all, we have no known pictures of her, so that's one thing. Second of all, although she could be dead, the game never specifies this, because you can be defeated without dying. So she could be alive. The question just is, where is she? Now the followers of the Gloam-Eyed Queen, the Godskin Apostles, are still walking around on the lands between. So that's one thing to take in. But I actually have more proof to suggest that the Gloam-Eyed Queen may actually still be alive. And this is kind of its own separate mystery. E.G.'s a really nice character who serves Ranni the Witch, but if you get the Age of Stars ending, you'll find him dead. And this is the big thing, there's Black Knife corpses around him. We know that Ranni had the power to send the Black Knife assassins to kill him, but that wouldn't make sense seeing that E.G. is one of Ranni's most devoted supporters. We know it couldn't be Marika because she's trapped in the Erd Tree, so who could have done it? Well, E.G. is surrounded by black flames that do look like the ones from the Godskin Apostles. We don't really know if there's any connection or relationship between the Gloam-Eyed Queen and the Black Knife assassins, but if I had to guess, this may have been the Gloam-Eyed Queen. Which makes things a little bit creepy considering if she is alive, we have no idea where she is. Dargonlord Who is one of the coolest bosses in the entire game, so it follows that he does have some really interesting but kind of confusing lore. Now to get into this mystery, we have to understand that although Godfrey was the first Elden Lord, Dargonlord Who was the first Elden Lord, before the age of the Erd Tree. And I could list a bunch of lore details on why Dargonlord Who was an Elden Lord, but it's in his name, so I'm just gonna say that. Now, although the DLC gave us some information on Dargonlord Who, like how he fought Baal and that's where his scars are from, the main mystery or question I'm about to present has not been answered and probably never will be. And that is that as he was Elden Lord, Who served an unknown god of dragons who vanished from the lands between. And we don't know who he is or where he went. So there's really nothing to work with. If you want to hear what I think, my personal guess is that the god of dragons that we never see is probably in like a different dimension or something. But I also don't know if that's how Elden Ring lore works, so that's probably not true. Anyway, we have no idea where he is, and for such a substantial part of old Elden Ring lore, it's kind of weird that we don't really get any hints to where or who he is. This is probably the most confusing mystery on this list.